Hi, everybody. I think we are going. Hi. I feel like I haven't done this for so long. I don't know why. I was only gone for a long weekend, but it like threw me completely off. So hi, welcome to my Friday night Stamp and Sip workshop where the weekend starts early. We are tonight going to be doing some cards with vellum. So hopefully you saw the samples on the Facebook page, so you know what we're looking at working with. We got, what did I do with it? The product of the month. I put it aside and now I can't find it. Here it is. Product of the month, that was a pack of vellum that came with a bunch of different prints. And it's so printed that I felt like I just wanted to use it as DSP. But so anyways, I came up with some cards to use the vellum up, and hopefully you guys will enjoy them and maybe try them on your own if you also got this vellum paper. So, okay, so we can get started, but let's take a sip of whatever we brought. Hi, Carol. Thanks for jumping on tonight. Hope you're well. Take a sip, whatever you brought, and we will get started. So I'm drinking my blood orange spritz again from Oliver wine, which is one of my favorites. All right, so let's bring the camera down here. Let's see. Swap this around. There we go. And I don't know, maybe we have enough light tonight. I was thinking we were going to need more light. All right, I think that's pretty good. All right. If anybody feels like it's too dark, let me know and I will turn some more lights on. All right. Hi, Courtney. Hi, Jan. Thanks for joining. All right, so these are the cards that I came up with to use some of this vellum up. This is the piece that's the freesia plaid. So the first card is a little window card. I just cut a window out of my card base, which is 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. And then I made myself this little window and then a little frame for the window. And then inside there is like a little vellum card. So you're going to open that up, and then you're going to have the little space for yourself to write sentiment. So that's the first card. Then the second card is, again, a 5.5 by 8.5 card base, scored at 4 1/4. And then this time I made a 5 1/4 by 4 piece of vellum, and I made a frame for that. And I'll show you how to do that. And then just decorated it with, this is the Lily of the Valley stamp set. And then this last one is just a vellum card. So this is a piece of vellum that's cut at 5.5 by 8.5 and scored at 4 1/4. And so this is the card base. And then you're just going to put a piece of 5 1/4 by 4 inside there and then decorate the front of it. All right, so hopefully we can do all these cards without being too long. All right, so what we need is two card bases. One that's 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4, and you're going to cut out a little window. And I used the second to largest die to cut out the little window. Okay. And then the second card base is going to just be a regular 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. And then for the last card, you're just going to need really just one piece. This I die cut out of the other piece. Just one piece of, oh no, I do need two. You need that one to go with this one. Sorry. This is for the third card. You just need a 5 1/4 by 4 inch piece to go inside. All right, so those are your card bases. All right, so let's cut the vellum. So for the first card with the window, we need a piece of vellum that is 5 1/4, because it's going to go inside your 5.5 inch card. So it's going to be 5 1/4. And then we want it to be 4 inches wide when we score it in half. So we want to make this 8 inches. And then we're going to score this just like you would a piece of designer series paper at 4. But you don't want to score it as hard. Just want to give it a little bit of a scoring. And then you're going to fold that. You'll see the score line and you're just going to fold that. You can break vellum, so you do want to be careful with it, and you don't want to score it or fold it too hard. Like you don't want to use your fingernails on it. Okay, so that's for the first card. The second card, what did I do with them? The second card, this one, this is going to be a 4 1/4 by, 5 1/4 by 4 inch piece. And then this last one is going to be 5 1/2 by 8 1/2. So I'm going to cut that one first, 5 1/2. By 8 1/2. Okay. And again, we're going to score that in half at 4 1/4. And then fold that in half. Oops, sliding around. Okay, that's our third card base. And then for the last one, we want a 4 by 5 1/4 inch piece. And so these scraps left over are not going to be big enough. So we're going to cut the second piece and we're going to go to 5 1/4. And you could make this smaller if you don't want it to take up the whole front of your card. But I just am going to show you how I did mine. By 4. All right, so that's for the third card. So we'll put all these scraps aside. We can make some more cards with those. Okay. All right, so let's work on the first one. The first one is the one with the window. And that should be this. Nope, that's too big. That should be this one. Okay. So it's 5 1/4 by 8, and we scored it in half at 4. Okay, so this is just going to get adhered to the inside of your card, just like that. So we're going to just adhere the back. I'm going to use, you could use tear and tape. I'm going to attempt to use some stamp and seal. I don't always use stamp and seal because I feel like I don't do it right and it gets wound around. So I'm going to do my best, but I brought my tear and tape just in case. Okay, so this is going to just get adhered right inside here. There we go. And then you'll put your piece of white inside, and we're going to have to cut that down. So that is going to now be 3 3/4 by 5 for the inside. Okay. And we can stamp on that, or on this other card, I put a little scrap of the designer series paper that I used for the frame on there. So the reason that I'm using a tape instead of liquid glue is because with the vellum, the liquid glue doesn't, it's too liquid and it will squish out. So I feel like the tape is a better means of adhesive with the vellum. Okay, so we'll just put that right in there. So now you've got your card base and you just have to decorate it. So what I have done is taken my 2 dies. This is the largest die and the second to largest of the Stylish Shapes dies. And I've put them onto a piece of designer series paper like this, one inside the other, and then die cut to get a little frame. So you'll get this piece that you can use on another card, and then this piece that should be just the right size to make your little window here. So this paper, this was cut out of the Moonlit Flora paper. So for this piece, I am going to use some liquid glue. Hi, Lorraine. Hi, Joan. Hi, Kathy. Thanks for popping in. Okay, so we're just going to use some liquid glue for this little frame because this is going to get adhered to the cardstock. And of course, you don't have to make it fancy with a little frame, but I thought it was cute. So I just found a paper that had some of the Peaceful Pine color, DSP with the Peaceful Pine, to complement the Peaceful Pine vellum that's inside. And then we have to stamp, which I should have done first, but you know, now we have to hold our breath. I have to make it, you know, we have to make it, suspenseful. All right, so this is my Peaceful Pine ink, and I've got, what have I got here? Thankful for You. All right, we're going to give us our best shot and see how we do here. Okay, now worst comes to worst, we could cover this up with a sentiment piece, but let's try. There we go, to get that right. Okay, and then we just want to decorate it. So I did bring some little pieces. I stamped some pieces with the Moonlit Flora stamp set. If you haven't seen it, it's just beautiful. It's called Fern and Flora. So that's this big fern piece here, and it's got some little moths, some little flowers. It's got this wonderful little stamp that you can decorate your die cut with for a label, and then a little background stamp, which I think we'll be using tonight, and then some really nice little sentiments. So we used the Thankful for You tonight. All right, so then I'm just going to add this little fern here, and again, I can use some liquid glue for that, or you could pop it up with some dimensionals. I'm just going to keep it simple and put some glue on there. And just have that go to the side. Okay, so there's your first card. Oh, we need some glue under here. So I'm going to just get some glue right in here. There. Just that little flap. Okay, so that's our first card with the vellum little card inside. Okay, and then the second one will be this one that we're going to do with this 5 1/4 by 4 piece. Okay, so we'll grab our vellum, Then what I did to make this frame is I cut 1/2-inch pieces of designer series paper, and these two are 5 1/4 inches long, and then I scored them at 1/4 of an inch, so right in half. Oops, so we're going to do that to these last ones. So these are 1/2-inch pieces. We're going to score them at 1/4 of an inch. So we're going to just line this up very gently and score that. And then this one. Score that. And that's going to make our frame. So what I did with the smaller ones that are at the top and the bottom is I angled the edges a little bit. And I just did that with my snips. And you really just need to do that on one, like on the top half of it. And you really don't need to do it at all, but I thought it looked a little bit more like a frame when it had a bit of an angle to it. Okay. So then I just adhered that to my my vellum, which I think this is the toughest part. So we're going to use some tape. And it always wants to go on one side and not the other side. Okay, it's sticky there. When you use this, it's very sticky, but you have to get it in the right place. Okay. So then we're going to just line this up on the vellum. And I'm not using the green side this time. I'm going to do the opposite side, which is this yellow, to give it a little bit of contrast. Yeah, see, it doesn't want to go right here. There's no glue right there. There we go. And then the same thing with this one. Honestly, I think I'd be better with tear and tape. Or maybe we'll do tear and tape on the other ones. I feel like I've got it all except for maybe this very end right there. Oh, it's so sticky. It's sticking to my fingers. All right, so then we're going to lay this in here. Whoops. And then bend that over. Okay, and then I'm going to use tear and tape for this one. All right. Stamp and Seal is just not my friend. I'm sorry. I tried. I think everybody has their favorite adhesive. Mine is definitely liquid glue, but when you're working with vellum, that's just not always going to work. So we'll get some tear and tape on here. And then you just have to take off the backing paper. It's a little bit of an extra step. But if it works, it works. All right, so then we want the side that we cut the angle to be the top. So we'll lay, this in here. Again, very sticky. And then make the top of our frame. And then do the bottom. Note to self, do this beforehand. All right. There we go. I have my little mat is all sticky now. Okay, here we go. Here we go. It's happening. Okay. And then again, that wants to be the top. So we're going to lay this in here. And then fold this over. Okay, you get the picture. So we're making a little frame. There we go. All right, so that is going to go onto your card base like this. And on this one, it's going to need a little bit of extra glue under there. We'll have to play with that later. On this one, I used liquid glue around the edge like I did with the other frame. You could use dimensionals for this if you want to pop it up. All types of things you can do. And then we're just going to get this onto our card front. And you notice I opened my card to do that because sometimes when your card is closed, it doesn't want to lay as flat and you have to line this up. So it's easier for me to see it when the card is open like that. All right, there we go. So now we've got our little frame and we can just make our, we can decorate it a bit. So I did bring some pieces from the Moonlit Flora, Fern and Flora set. These are some little die cut pieces that the dies, with the dies that you get. So all these little ferns. This is some seafoam green and some golden glow. And I've got a little sentiment that we're going to do. You make the world a better place. Oops, we're going to stamp that again in the Peaceful Pine. Okay. And then we'll just decorate the card. So we're going to put this on the front with some dimensionals. And we'll pick some little pieces here. I think we want to do some golden glow and maybe some Peaceful Pine on top. And we'll get one of these little seafoam green ones in here. So I'm going to use this one in the golden glow. And what I'm going to do to get that on there is use some glue dots. So full disclosure, I ran out of glue dots. So these are some paper pumpkin glue dots that were left over from a paper pumpkin kit that will work just as well. Don't ever throw away your extra supplies from your kits if you're a kit person. They come in handy and you can use them for other projects. All right, so I'm going to get my golden glow guy on there. And then maybe one of these in seafoam. Yeah, I like that. Okay, so we'll do this little guy in seafoam. Some more little dots. Okay. Again, because the liquid glue is just really messy on vellum. It wants to slide around and not stay where you put it. So some glue dots will do the trick. And then we'll use some dimensionals for our sentiment. There we go. There's that one. Okay, so there's card number 2 with your little frame. And then the last one is the card that is actually made out of vellum. So this is vellum that's 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. And we are just going to put a piece of basic white inside. This is 5 1/4 by 4. I'm going to do that inside. We're going back to the tape runner. I need a tape runner class. That's what I need. Oh, now it's working. There we go. Okay. So this is going to go inside. Just like that. And then we just need to decorate the front. So this time I brought this beautiful die that is this scallop. This is from the new Framed Violets dies. It's a scallop with the little sentiment piece that fits inside. This is going to be a new release in July, and I love it just for this piece. It's wonderful. All right, so I'm going to stamp my sentiment on here first with Peaceful Pine. And where are we? Okay, so what I was going to do was show you this little background stamp. So we're going to do some Peaceful Pine. We're going to stamp off, and then stamp onto our background piece. And you probably can't even see that, but there is some ink on there. I will hold it up for you. I don't know if you can see, there's a little bit of a pattern there. Just a little faint pattern underneath, and we're going to do Thankful for You. And I think I'm going to do it on the side because I want to put some decorations on the left. Okay, then we are going to just put this onto our scallop piece. And I moved it. There we go. I just want to center that up. And then we're going to put that onto our card base. So again, I'm going to use some tape runner, and you could do dimensionals on this as well. And yes, this might show through a little bit, but I don't think it's terrible. I'll show you on the other card what it looks like. So you can see on, if you used like a tape runner, you really can't see the adhesive very much at all. What did I do on the other one? I might have done dimensionals. Let me see. No, I did tape runner on that one as well. So that one, again, even with the light vellum, you can't really see the adhesive there. But honestly, I don't think people look that closely at and pick your cards apart when they get it in the mail. All right, so then I've got some more little fern pieces. So I've got this dark one and a light one. Maybe we'll layer it up like that this time. And this time, because I'm going on to some cardstock pieces, I can use my glue. I moved it. Now you decide you're going to go one way and then you move it a different way, and now it looks different. That's okay. It's fluid. Card making is fluid. There we go. Oops, no, he's stuck to my finger. I have sticky fingers. Okay. All right, so there is your third card with the vellum. All right, and somebody wanted to know about this bow. So hang on. Let me find. This is just a normal bow. This one didn't use a bow, but this one I did a little bow with some twine. So I just want to show you real quick. I've got some Peaceful Pine ribbon, and I just doubled up my ribbon, and it's really short, but I'm gonna, this one is super short, but I'm gonna show you here. So I just doubled up my ribbon and cut it like that. And then I just took my twine, good length so that you can make a bow. You can always cut it. Then I just did my twine around, oops, the ribbon. And the trickiest part of this is holding it in place. So sometimes when I'm doing that, I will take a block and use the block to hold things down. You could also, if you have reversible tweezers, the reverse tweezers can hold things in place for you as well. So then I'm just going to make my little bow, just hold it real tight and make a little bow. Just get that in the middle. Okay, and then just make it as big as you want it to be. And cut your ends off. I'm making a mess here. Okay. There we go. All right, so then we want this side to be a little shorter. Just like that. And we just play with it so that it looks cute. And then again, another glue dot is going to hold that onto your card. If I can find a glue dot. 1 second. There we go. Okay, so we can put that one right, maybe right here. Right there. It just gives a little bit extra interest with the little twine bow around the ribbon. Okay, so here's the ones from the sample that I showed online. And then here are the ones we did tonight. Then I've got one more set. So this is the other piece of vellum with all the flowers. This is the window. Again, I used a piece from the Moonlit Flora paper to make that little frame, and I used a fern there. So this is that floral piece, the window card. And then this one, I did the 5 1/4 by 4 piece on the front with also Moonlit Flora paper. This is the Berry Burst color for the frame. And then a Berry Burst fern there for that one. And then the last one, this is just the vellum card with the white inside. And this was a die, this label was a die from the Silly Old Bear set. Oh, no, it's not called Silly Old Bear. Hang on. The dies are called something different. Sorry, they are called Sweet Words and Labels dies. So these dies are beautiful. They make a beautiful, a bunch of beautiful labels. And then I did use from Silly Old Bear, I did use the saying there. And another little fern. All right, so that is it. I hope you guys get your vellum out and try to use it on some cards, maybe in like not such a traditional way, and use up that paper, guys. All right, so that is it for me tonight. Get back out of here. There we go. All right, so that's it for me tonight. Hope you enjoyed. All right, so we will just get our weekend started now. I hope you guys have a great weekend. It's supposed to be very hot weather here. I don't know what's going on in the rest of the world, but we're supposed to be hot here. And then we're going to get a rainstorm, and Monday it's going to cool off again. So that's how last summer went too, kind of up and down, up and down. All right. Well, thanks, Lorraine. I'm glad you liked the cards. All right, so that's it for me tonight, guys. If you want the instructions for the cards, get on my email list because the instructions will come out on Wednesday in my weekly email. You can go to thismustbeink.com and sign up for my email list there. Okay, everybody have a great weekend. Cheers. Stay crafty, my friends.